So on a random day, I woke up and I headed to my dad's dry box. What I found inside there was the Leica M6 in all its glory sitting in there. It's a camera that I've always held on a pedestal as the family treasure, and it's something that, even though I knew existed, I didn't really have the courage to shoot with when I was just getting started. But now that I've grown a lot as a photographer over the past year, I feel like I'm kind of ready to tackle this piece of treasure, this really coveted camera that's so loved throughout the film photography community. And I thought I'd make a video about it, talking about the Leica M6 experience. This camera is a monster in terms of its physical quality. It feels really good to use just holding in my hand. The shutter is so quiet, which makes it perfect for street photography. Loading the film into the camera feels absolutely amazing. The light meter's good, everything's just really good. It's a really well-made camera. The problem was though that this was my first time using a rangefinder. And the reason why the Leica M6 and other rangefinder cameras in the same series are so popular for street photography is because of the idea of zone focusing, that the rangefinder lens is particularly easy to go about. So the first place I photographed was Samsebo, which is this place in Kowloon, where I really think represents a lot of the culture in Hong Kong. The street I'm talking about is Ap Liu Gai, which is basically this place with a bunch of stalls that sells technology and all this kind of stuff. I think that the vibes are amazing. I did come up with a bunch of pictures that I am really happy with. This one in particular is where kind of the Leica M6 and Portra kind of combine to create the perfectly lit scene. The green hues are absolutely perfect and the exposure is just amazing on this old noodle store. It's a bit blurred on the back and the focus is on the little glass case of the ingredients in the front, which I think makes the photograph really good and I'm really happy with it. Now let's showcase some of the zone focusing I did. Obviously this is my first time trying this, so I did mess up a lot of the photos at the start, but a couple of them actually went really well. I shot this picture from the hip, so there's a kind of tilted angle which I think adds to the motion of the image. I shot it at 125, so you can see a tiny bit of motion blur of the woman kind of moving her construction materials or whatnot. The light is directly shining on the subject and I really like the contrast between the red street sign on the top left and the blue truck on the right. I think it makes a perfect composition and I'm really happy about this picture. This is another picture I really like though, where I kind of nailed the exposure perfectly, where the warmth and the kind of cool hues of Portra 160 perfectly contrast to make this image. It's a picture of a stall that sells jade and other classic Chinese ornaments with a warm lamp kind of glowing in the middle of it. And I think this is really nice. After a little bit of cropping and editing, this is one of my favorite pictures that I've taken on the Leica M6 so far. So the next place I went was Huanzai with a couple of my friends and I bought my M6 along the way. And this is where I really tried to emphasize on zone focusing and getting up close and personal with my street photographs, which came out pretty well. Most of the pictures are actually pretty well focused, even though the exposures are kind of terrible. This is a picture of two guys just sorting out the trash, which I think in terms of composition is pretty good, and I never really get this up close and personal with my street photographs. But with the power of zone focusing, I really did a good job at framing the scene. However, it's a little bit underexposed as you can tell, so I'm not really too happy about the final result. And then we come to this picture, which is probably the best picture that I've taken in this entire video. It shows a bunch of red lanterns hanging from the top because it's almost Mid-Autumn Festival. So we celebrate that and decorate that with lanterns. And we have a couple of subjects at the bottom. A woman carrying her groceries, a tiny little statue. And overall, I think this shot is framed very well. The lighting is perfect, even though I would say the vignette is a little bit too strong. So now we move on to the next roll of film that I shot, which is Kodak Gold. This is obviously a classic that I'm very familiar with shooting, and it's really hit or miss for me. It really depends on the exposure and if I decide to mess up and accidentally photograph a bunch of backlit subjects. So for this roll of film, I went to the seaside in Tsim, which you've probably seen. It's a very Google-esque kind of location. If you search Hong Kong, the views they give you are probably of this kind of pier. And I tried to do my own hand at photographing the life there. The weather was really nice. It was a nice sunny day, but not too harsh. So this is the first picture that I took. I'm pretty happy with it because of the lighting. It's a pretty basic composition though. We have the rails of the promenade kind of covering the bottom half to add a little bit more depth. And towards the top, you'll see the skyline of Hong Kong Island. And I think it looks really nice. I know it's a pretty basic picture, but I think that the lighting really complements the scene, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. Next up, from the same kind of area, I managed to take a picture of these construction workers working on something, some electrical appliances, I'm not really sure. I really like the contrast between this scene and the kind of massive and vast skyline that's behind it. I think that the exposure could be a little bit better. I feel like it's a little bit too backlit, maybe a bit too overexposed even, but I'm very happy with kind of the life that this picture conveys. So the next photograph we have here is a group of tourists standing in front of a statue, and behind that is of course the skyline that I've already talked about. It's backlit, but this time it was intentional, and I think it adds a lot of good contrast to the scene. The family is standing directly under the shadow, and so as kind of dimmed out subjects, it really contrasts well with the super bright and sunny kind of view that's behind it. So the next place I went was Manmomyo, which is a temple in Sheung, just across the sea, or the river, whatever you call it. It's just across where I was before, to also run a couple of errands. And again, I tried to focus on kind of the more old style street photography, and I did take a couple of pictures that I think are decent. This is a picture I took of two old kind of Chinese propaganda posters, which is complemented by this really nice warm light that reflects off of this tarp that's behind it. I think that this shot is really basic in terms of its composition, but the reason why I'm so happy with it is because of the story that it's able to tell, and the things that it's able to represent. Next up, we have this kind of tilted picture of construction workers, and the reason I took this is to again tell a story about how there's just so much changing in Hong Kong. As the city is getting more and more developed, I start to question the ethics of modernization, whether it's good or not, whether it's the same as the Hong Kong that I know and love. And this is kind of the story that I wanted to tell with this photograph. I don't think it's framed really well, but again, it's because of the story and the life that you can kind of see in the picture that really makes it something that's quite special to me. And finally, we have this picture of a worker sitting behind his desk. It's a bit grainy. I'm not sure how this roll of film was developed, but this is a picture where it would have been perfect otherwise. I really like the composition here of the poster covering the left side of the screen with the employee sitting behind it, behind the window, with some subtle reflections of the street behind it, and also at the same time kind of emphasizing on the green hues that the lights give off inside the store. So this is a final reflection. After taking 72 pictures on the Leica M6, what do I think? I think that this camera shoots like crack cocaine. You can never get enough of it. The shutter just sounds so good, it feels amazing to use. And I think that the rangefinder gives a new kind of aspect of intentionality to film photography. Is it good for street photography? Yes. But am I good at street photography? Absolutely not. Here on the screen you can see a bunch of these pictures that I completely messed up because I got the exposures completely wrong. But regardless, we'll keep working on it. I still have an SLR to bring back to London to continue to work on my exposures, and maybe the next summer I come back, I will have some better pictures with the Leica M6. But this was kind of a different video, just like a kind of commentary style video. So I hope you guys did enjoy it. Let me know if you would like more of this kind of technical stuff a little bit more. I just wanted to go a bit more in depth with the narratives in my pictures this time around. So let me know. I hope you guys had a great summer. It's almost school season again. For all of you who are still in uni or school or whatever, it's almost that season again. But I hope you guys are doing well. Make sure to like and comment and subscribe to all of that stuff if you want. I don't really care. But have a nice day.